The slave markets of Volante were famous across 12 star systems. Creatures from every corner of the galaxy came here to buy and sell living beings. The buildings were tall and made of dark metal. The air smelled like chemicals and fear. Thousands of cages lined the wide streets, each one holding something valuable to someone. The buyers were mostly tall beings with pale blue skin that you could almost see through. They called themselves the Volante, and they had been trading slaves for over 1,000 years. They walked slowly between the cages, pointing at creatures with their long fingers, discussing prices in their soft clicking language. But today was different. Today, all the buyers had gathered around one single cage. It was not like the others. This cage was made of thick glass, reinforced with metal bars. Warning symbols covered every side in 17 different languages. Armed guards stood at each corner, their weapons ready. Inside the cage sat a young female. She was small. Her skin was a warm brown color, and her dark hair was pulled back from her face. She sat very still in the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest. Her eyes were brown and calm, and they watched everything. The crowd whispered and pointed. "What is it?" asked one buyer. "Look at the warning signs," said another. "Class 12 Deathworld origin. That means it comes from one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy." The auctioneer stepped onto his platform. He was a fat Volante with rings on every finger and fear in his eyes. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Today, we have something very special," he announced. His voice was loud but shaky. "A genuine Deathworlder. Species: human, origin, Earth. This female is called Yuna. She is 19 standard cycles old." The crowd moved closer. Some of them had never seen a human before. They had only heard stories. "Earth," someone whispered. "The death planet. I heard their gravity would crush us flat," said another voice. "Their sun gives off radiation that would kill most species in hours. They breathe a poisonous gas mixture. Oxygen, they call it." The auctioneer continued. "This specimen was captured from a colony transport ship 6 months ago. She has not been modified or enhanced in any way. She has no combat training. What you see is a completely natural baseline human female." Inside the cage, Yuna listened to everything. She did not show any emotion on her face. She had learned in the past 6 months that showing emotion was dangerous. It made them curious. It made them want to test her. So she sat still and watched. She counted the guards. She noted their weapons. She memorized every face in the crowd. The bidding started low but climbed fast. Different species shout in numbers, each one higher than the last. The Volante traders bid against wealthy collectors. Research facilities competed with private buyers. Everyone wanted the Deathworlder. But in the end, only one buyer had enough money to win. His name was Thal. He was the overseer of the Korath Dominion's Arena Division. He was not Volante. He was Korath, a species of large, muscular beings with gray skin and small black eyes. The Korath were known throughout the galaxy as warriors and conquerors. They loved violence. They loved blood sports. And they loved their arenas. Thal paid 3 times the normal price for a gladiator. His assistant, a smaller Korath named Breck, looked at him with confusion. "Sir, she is very small," Breck said. "She has no training. Why pay so much?" Thal smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Because she's from Earth, Breck. Do you know what Earth is like? I have heard it is dangerous." "Dangerous?" Thal laughed. "Earth is a nightmare. The gravity there is strong enough to break our bones. The atmosphere is full of corrosive gases. The water is filled with acid. Their sun constantly bombards them with deadly radiation." He leaned closer to his assistant. "And this small female? She lived there. She breathed that air. She drank that water. She walked under that sun every single day of her life. Breck looked at the cage with new eyes. The human female did not look dangerous. She looked weak and soft. The crowd will love her, Thal continued. Either she will die quickly and everyone will laugh at the small Deathworlder, or she will fight and everyone will be amazed. Either way, we make money. The sale was completed. Guards moved toward the cage with restraint devices. They were careful and slow. They had heard stories about humans. Inside the cage, Yuna watched them approach. She did not fight when they opened the door. She did not resist when they put metal bands around her wrists. She stayed calm and quiet as they led her out of the cage and toward a transport vehicle. But her eyes never stopped moving. She saw the guard on the left with the shock weapon. She noticed the guard on the right had a bad knee. He limped slightly when he walked. She counted the steps from the cage to the transport. She memorized the position of every door and window. They pushed her into the back of the transport. It was dark inside, with only a small light in the ceiling. The walls were cold metal. There were no windows. The vehicle started moving. Yuna felt it turn left, then right, then left again. She kept track of every turn in her head. Somewhere above her, guards talked in their clicking language. They thought she could not understand them. They were wrong. She had spent 6 months listening. She had learned enough. How long until we reach the arena? One guard asked. 2 hours, another answered. The overseer wants her processed tonight. Processed? Measured, tested, put into the system. She fights tomorrow. Tomorrow? That is fast. Usually new fighters train for weeks. The overseer does not think she needs training. He says Deathworlders are natural killers. He wants to see what she can do. The guards laughed. One of them kicked the wall of Yuna's compartment. Did you hear that, little human? You fight tomorrow. Try not to die too fast. The crowd likes a good show. Yuna did not answer. She sat in the darkness and thought about tomorrow. She thought about the arena. She thought about the guards and their weapons and their weakness. On Earth, she had been a university student. She studied literature and art history. She had never been in a fight in her entire life. She had been on a colony ship, traveling to a new world with her family when the Korath raiders attacked. They killed her parents. They killed her younger brother. They took her. For 6 months, she had been sold and traded like an animal. She had been examined and tested and displayed. She had been beaten when she did not obey fast enough. She had been starved when she asked questions. But she had also watched. She had learned. She had remembered. Humans were good at that. They were good at watching and learning and waiting. They were patient. They could wait a very long time for the right moment. The transport continued through the dark city. Above, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there was home. Yuna closed her eyes. She did not sleep. She planned. Tomorrow, she would enter the arena. Tomorrow, she would show the galaxy what a Deathworlder could do. They thought she was small and weak. They thought she was soft. They thought she was just another piece of merchandise to be used and thrown away. They were wrong. The transport arrived at the arena complex as the sun set. Guards pulled Yuna out and pushed her through metal doors into a cold processing room. They took her measurements. They scanned her body. They entered her information into their computer systems. Name, Yuna. Species, human. Planet of origin, Earth. Class 12 Deathworld. Combat training, none. Expected survival time, less than 5 minutes. The computer printed out a small card with her information. A guard hung it around her neck like a tag. Then they threw her into a cell and locked the door. The cell was small and dark. There was a thin mattress on the floor and a bucket in the corner. The walls were scratched with marks from previous prisoners. Some of them had written messages. Most of the messages said goodbye. Yuna lay on the mattress and stared at the ceiling. She could hear sounds from somewhere far above, the roar of crowds, the clash of weapons, the screams of the dying. The arena was active. Someone was fighting right now. Someone was dying. Tomorrow, it would be her turn. She thought about her family. Her mother had been a teacher. Her father had been an engineer. Her brother had been only 12 years old. They had been so excited to start a new life on a colony world. They had been so full of hope. Now they were dead. Now she was alone. Something changed inside Yuna as she lay there in the dark. The fear that had kept her quiet for 6 months began to transform. It became something harder, something colder, something dangerous. She was not going to die in this arena. She was not going to provide entertainment for the creatures that had destroyed her family. She was going to survive. And then she was going to make them regret ever hearing the word human. Above her, the arena crowd roared again. Someone had died. Someone had won. The cycle continued, as it had for hundreds of years. But tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, a Deathworlder would enter the arena. Tomorrow, everything would change. Yuna closed her eyes and slept. She would need her strength for what came next. The arena of Karth Prime was the largest in the sector. It could hold 60,000 spectators, and today, every seat was full. The crowd was loud and hungry. They had come to watch death. They had come to watch blood. The sand in the center of the arena was white and clean. Workers had raked it smooth early in the morning. The blood drains around the edges were clear and ready. The weapons racks along the walls were full of swords, spears, and clubs of every size. High above the sand, in a special viewing box made of golden glass, Overseer Thal sat on his throne. His assistant Breck stood beside him, holding a computer tablet with all of today's match information. "The crowd is excited," Breck said. "Word has spread about the Deathworlder. Everyone wants to see her." Thal smiled and reached for his drink. "Good. Higher attendance means higher profits. What is the betting situation?" "The odds are 50-1 against her surviving the first 5 minutes. Most people have bet on her dying quickly. Most people are fools," Thal said. "But their foolishness will make us rich." Down below the arena, in the dark tunnels where fighters waited, Yuna stood in front of a metal gate. 2 guards stood behind her with shock sticks. They had given her simple cloth clothing, a short dress, and nothing else. No armor, no shoes, no weapons. One of the guards laughed. "Look at her. So small. So soft. The brothers will tear her apart in seconds." "I bet she screams," said the other guard. "The small ones always scream." Yuna did not look at them. She stared through the bars of the gate at the arena beyond. She could see the white sand, the high walls, the thousands of faces in the seats. She could hear the crowd chanting and stomping their feet. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind was calm. She had spent the whole night thinking, planning, preparing herself for what was about to happen. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "Welcome to the arena of Karth Prime. Today, we have something special for you. A genuine Deathworlder, fresh from the slave markets of Volanti." The crowd roared with excitement. "She is called Yuna. She is a human female from Earth, the most dangerous planet in the known galaxy. She has no weapons. She has no training. Let us see what a Deathworlder can do." The gate in front of Yuna began to rise. Bright light flooded into the tunnel. The guards pushed her forward, and she walked out onto the sand. The crowd fell quiet for a moment. They had expected something big, something scary. Instead, They saw a small young female with brown skin and dark hair. She looked weak. She looked like nothing. Then they started to laugh. 60,000 voices laughed at the small human standing alone in the center of the arena. They pointed and mocked her. Someone threw food from the stands. Yuna stood still. She did not show any reaction. She simply looked around the arena, memorizing everything. The positions of the weapon racks, the locations of the gates, the height of the walls, the distance to the viewing boxes above. And now, the announcer continued, her opponents. They have fought 43 matches between them. They have killed over 100 enemies. They are the deadliest team in the arena. I give you the Brothers of Keth. The gate on the opposite side of the arena opened. 4 massive figures walked out onto the sand. The Brothers of Keth were reptilian. They stood over 2 meters tall. Their skin was covered in thick green scales that shone like armor. Their arms were long and muscular, ending in claws that could cut through metal. Their faces were flat and cold, with yellow eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. They were killers. Professional killers. They had been convicted of murder on their home world and sent to the arena as punishment. They had been promised freedom if they survived 100 matches. They were more than halfway there. The largest brother saw Yuna and laughed. It was a horrible sound, like rocks grinding together. "This is our opponent?" he said. "This tiny thing? I could kill her with one hand." The other brothers joined his laughter. They spread out across the sand, moving slowly toward Yuna from different directions. Yuna watched them come. She noticed that the largest one walked with a slight limp. His left leg was weaker than his right. The second one kept his right arm close to his body, an old injury, probably. The third one was the fastest, but he was also the smallest of the group. The fourth one was the most careful. He stayed behind the others, watching. The horn sounded. The match had begun. The brothers charged. The crowd screamed with excitement. This would be over quickly. The small human would die in seconds, but Yuna did not run. She did not scream. She stood perfectly still and watched the brothers come closer and closer. At the last possible moment, she moved. The largest brother swung his clawed hand at her head, but she was not there. She had dropped low and rolled to the side, moving faster than anyone expected. The brother's claws cut through empty air. Before he could recover, Yuna was behind him. She brought her foot down hard on the back of his weak left knee. The joint broke with a loud crack. The brother screamed and fell forward onto the sand. The second brother turned and swung at her. But Yuna grabbed the falling body of the first brother and pulled it into the path of the attack. The second brother's claws cut deep into his own brother's back. Now the crowd was not laughing anymore. They were watching in shocked silence. Yuna moved again. She used the body of the first brother as a shield, pushing it into the second brother. They both fell to the ground in a tangle of limbs and scales. The third brother, the fast one, came at her from the side. He was quick, but Yuna was quicker. She stepped inside his reach, too close for his claws to be effective. Her small hands found his throat. Her fingers pressed into the soft space between his scales. The brother tried to scream, but no sound came out. Yuna squeezed harder. She could feel his heartbeat under her fingers, fast and desperate. She could feel his life slipping away. 3 seconds later, he stopped moving. The fourth brother had stopped his careful approach. He stood 10 meters away, staring at the small human with new eyes. This was not what he had expected. This was not what anyone had expected. "What are you?" he whispered. "Yun, let the body of the third brother fall to the sand." She looked at the fourth brother with calm brown eyes. "I am human," she said. The fourth brother ran at her with all his speed. He was the most skilled of the group, the most experienced. He had killed 50 enemies in the arena. He knew how to fight, but he had never fought a human before. Yuna did not try to block his attack. She did not try to match his strength. Instead, she moved with the attack, using his own force against him. She grabbed his arm as it passed her and pulled. At the same time, she stepped into his body and pushed Dot. The brother flipped over her hip and crashed into the sand. Before he could get up, Yuna had his own arm pressed against his throat. She twisted. There was a snapping sound. The brothers stopped moving. The first two brothers had untangled themselves and were getting to their feet. The largest one could not stand properly. His broken knee would not hold his weight. The second one had deep cuts on his arms and chest from his own brother's claws. They looked at the small human standing over the body of their brother. They looked at each other. For the first time in their arena careers, they felt fear. Together, the largest one growled. "We take her together." They attacked at the same time, coming from both sides. It was their best tactic, the one that had won them so many matches. No enemy could defend against attacks from two directions at once. But Yuna was not like other enemies. She ran toward the larger brother, the one with the broken knee. He did not expect that. He expected her to retreat, to try to escape. Instead, she came right at him. At the last moment, she dropped and slid across the sand, passing between his legs. She grabbed his bad knee as she passed and pulled. The brother crashed to the ground with a scream of pain. The second brother's attack missed completely. His claws cut through the air where Yuna had been a moment before. Before he could turn, she was on his back. Her arms wrapped around his neck. Her legs locked around his body. He tried to shake her off. He spun and twisted and slammed his back against the arena wall. But she held on. Her grip was like iron. Slowly, the second brother stopped fighting. His movements became weaker and weaker. Finally, he fell to his knees, then forward onto the sand. Only the largest brother was left. He crawled toward her, dragging his broken leg, his eyes full of rage and fear. "What are you?" he screamed. "What kind of monster are you?" Yuna picked up a rock from the sand. It was small, about the size of her fist. She walked toward the crawling brother with steady steps. "I told you," she said. "I am human. I am from Earth, and on Earth we have a saying." She stood over him, the rock in her hand. "The bigger they are, the harder they fall." 8 minutes after the match began, the arena of Karth Prime fell silent. 4 brothers of Keth, the deadliest team in the arena, lay dead on the sand. Standing over them was a small human female, covered in their blood, breathing steadily. She looked up at Overseer Thal's viewing box. She smiled. The crowd did not know how to react. Some of them were screaming. Some of them were crying. Some of them were trying to leave. They had come to watch a quick and easy death. They had not expected this. In his viewing box, Thal gripped the arms of his throne so hard his knuckles turned white. His assistant Breck was shaking. "Send more," Thal commanded. His voice was hoarse. "Send the Nightclaws." "Sir, the Nightclaws are." The Ironbacks were the most feared creatures in the arena of Karth Prime. They were massive beasts, standing 3 meters tall and covered in natural armor that could stop most weapons. Their hands were like hammers, heavy and powerful. They had never been defeated in arena combat. Not once, not ever. 2 Ironbacks walked onto the sand. Their footsteps shook the ground. The crowd, which had been silent with shock, began to cheer again. Surely now the Deathworlder would die. Surely nothing could survive the Ironbacks. Yuna stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by the bodies of her previous enemies. She was tired and wounded. Blood from cuts on her arms and legs dripped onto the white sand. But she did not sit down. She did not rest. She watched the Ironbacks approach with the same calm eyes she had shown since the beginning. The two creatures stopped 10 meters away from her. They looked at the dead Nightclaws and the dead brothers. Then they looked at the small human who had killed them all. "Impressive," the first Ironback said. His voice was deep and slow, like rocks falling down a mountain. "But those were weak opponents." "We are not weak." "No," Yuna agreed. "You are not weak. But you are slow." The Ironback laughed. "Speed will not save you, little creature. Our armor is too thick. Your tiny hands cannot hurt us. We will see." The Ironbacks charged. They moved like walking mountains, unstoppable and massive. The sand shook with each step. Yuna did not try to fight them directly. She ran, not away from them but around them, keeping just out of reach of their huge arms. The crowd booed. They thought she was being a coward. But Yuna was not running from fear. She was studying. She was learning. The Ironbacks were strong, but they were also slow to turn. When she moved behind them, they took many seconds to change direction. Their armor covered most of their bodies, but there were gaps at the joints where the plates did not connect properly. Their eyes were small and deep in their armored heads. They probably could not see very well to the sides. After 2 minutes of running and dodging, Yuna had learned everything she needed to know. She stopped suddenly and turned to face the nearest Ironback. He swung his massive fist at her head. She ducked and moved forward, getting close to his body where he could not hit her easily. Her hands found the gap in his armor at the back of his knee. She pushed her fingers into the gap and pulled. The Ironback screamed. It was a sound no one in the arena had ever heard before. No one had ever hurt an Ironback badly enough to make them scream. Blue blood poured from the wound. The creature fell to one knee. Yuna climbed up his back before he could shake her off. She reached the top of his head and found another gap in the armor, this one at the base of his skull. The broken claw from the Nightclaw fight was still in her hand. She pushed it into the gap with all her strength. The Ironback fell forward and did not get up again. The second Ironback roared with rage. He swung both his fists at Yuna, trying to crush her against the sand. She rolled away just in time. The fists hit the ground so hard they made small holes in the packed earth beneath the sand. Yuna got to her feet and faced the remaining Ironback. She was breathing hard now. Her body was screaming with pain and exhaustion. But she could not stop. If she stopped, she died. The Ironback was more careful now. He had seen what happened to his companion. He moved slowly, keeping his eyes on the small human, protecting the weak points in his armor. "You are clever," he admitted. "Cleverer than I thought. But you are also tired. I can see it. You cannot keep fighting forever." "Neither can you," Yuna said. She picked up a handful of sand and threw it at the Ironback's face. The small grains got into his eyes, blinding him for just a moment. That moment was enough. Yuna ran forward and dove between the Ironback's legs. She slid across the bloody sand and came up behind him. Before he could turn, she jumped onto his back and climbed toward his head. The Ironback tried to reach behind himself, but his arms were too short. He tried to shake her off, but she held on tight. He ran backward and slammed his back against the arena wall, but she twisted her body out of the way just in time. Her hands found the gap at the base of his skull. Her fingers went in deep. She grabbed something soft and pulled. The second Ironback fell. The arena of Karth Prime went completely silent. 60,000 spectators stared at the small human standing over the body of the last Ironback. They could not believe what they had just seen. They could not understand how this was possible. In his viewing box, Overseer Thal was no longer sitting on his throne. He was standing at the glass wall, his face pressed against it, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fury. "Send the guards," he said. His voice was quiet but dangerous. "Send a full tactical team. Subdue her." His assistant Breck looked at him with worry. "Sir, she has killed everything we sent." "Perhaps we should." I said send them. Dahl screamed. "I want her restrained. I want her broken. I want her to know that she belongs to me." Down below the viewing box, in the tunnel that led to the arena floor, Arena Captain Varric received the order. He was a veteran of many wars, a soldier who had seen terrible things. But even he felt a cold sensation in his stomach as he looked out at the arena floor. The sand was no longer white. It was red with blood, covered with bodies. And in the center of it all stood a small human female, wounded and tired but still very much alive. "Full tactical team," Varric ordered his guards. 20 soldiers. Shield formation. Shock lances on maximum power. Restraint nets ready. We take her down. The guards prepared themselves. They put on their full combat armor. They checked their weapons. They formed into a tight formation with shields at the front and weapons behind. The gate opened and they marched into the arena. The crowd stirred. This was different. These were not arena fighters. These were trained soldiers with advanced weapons. Surely now the show would end. Yuna watched the guards enter the arena. She counted them quickly, 20 soldiers in armor, carrying shields and shock weapons. They moved in perfect formation, covering each other, leaving no openings. She was so tired. Her body hurt everywhere. She had been fighting for over an hour without rest. Her arms felt like lead weights. Her legs were shaking. Every breath was painful. But she could not surrender. She knew what would happen if she surrendered. More cages. More auctions. More arenas. More death, until finally there was no more Yuna left. Just a broken thing waiting to die. No, she would rather die here, fighting, than live as their prisoner. The guards approached slowly. Their captain's voice came through a speaker in his helmet. "Deathworlder, you are ordered to surrender. Kneel and place your hands behind your head. This is your only warning." Yuna did not kneel. She did not put her hands behind her head. She bent down and picked up a shock lance from the body of one of the brothers. It was not her weapon, but it would work. "Final warning," the captain said. "Surrender now, or we will use force." Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Come and take me," she said. The guards attacked. Later, military experts would study the recordings of what happened next. They would slow down the video and analyze every movement. They would write reports and give lectures and shake their heads in disbelief. A single human female, with no formal combat training, with only a borrowed weapon, facing 20 trained soldiers in full armor. She should have lost. She should have fallen in seconds. Every calculation said so. Every prediction said so. But calculations and predictions did not account for what humans truly were. The first guard reached her and swung his shock lance at her head. She was not there. She had moved to the side, faster than his eyes could follow. Her own shock lance caught him in the gap between his helmet and his chest armor. He fell. Twitching, the second guard tried to catch her to hesh his restraint net. She grabbed the net and pulled. The guard, surprised by her strength, stumbled forward. Her knee caught him in the face. His visor shattered. He went down. The formation broke. The guards were trained to fight together, but Yuna did not let them stay together. She moved through them like water through rocks, never staying in one place, never letting them surround her. She used their weapons against them. When one guard swung at her, she redirected his strike so it hit another guard. When they tried to corner her, she slipped through the smallest gaps in their formation. When they tried to predict her movements, She did something unexpected. A guard grabbed her from behind. She bent forward and flipped him over her shoulder. Before he hit the ground, she had already taken his shock lance and used it to knock down 2 more guards. 3 guards charged her at once. She dropped to the ground and rolled between their legs. As she passed, she cut the straps that held their leg armor in place. They tripped over their own equipment and fell in a pile. The guards were screaming now. Not battle cries, but screams of fear. They had never faced anything like this. They had never imagined anything like this. 12 minutes after the guards entered the arena, Captain Vorik called for retreat. Only 11 of his 20 guards were still standing. 3 of those were wounded. The others were scattered across the arena floor, unconscious or worse. Fall back. Vorik shouted. Everyone fall back. Seal the gates. The surviving guards ran. They did not walk in formation. They did not cover each other. They ran like animals fleeing a predator. 3 hours had passed since Yuna entered the arena. The sun was beginning to set over Korath Prime, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The arena was mostly empty now. Most of the crowd had left, too disturbed by what they had seen to stay. But the cameras were still running. The broadcast was still live. And across the sector, 60 million viewers watched a single, human female sitting calmly in the center of an arena full of death. Yuna had not moved from her spot in 2 hours. She sat cross-legged on the bloody sand, cleaning her weapons with a piece of cloth torn from her prison clothes. Around her lay the bodies of the brothers, the Nightclaws, the Ironbacks, and the 9 guards who had not walked away from the fight. She was hungry. She was thirsty. Her wounds had stopped bleeding, but they hurt with every movement. Yet she showed no sign of weakness. She simply sat and waited, as patient as the stones of the arena walls. Outside the arena, chaos had taken over. The Dominion's military commander had been called to the scene. Politicians were receiving worried calls from other sectors. News reporters were demanding statements. And everywhere, people were asking the same question. How could this happen? In a small room above the arena, a meeting was taking place. Overseer Thal sat at the head of a long table, his face pale and drawn. Around him sat Captain Vorik, several military officers, and a tall gray figure in expensive robes. High Commander Raketh, the supreme military authority of the Korath Dominion. This is a disaster, Raketh said. His voice was cold and flat. The entire sector is watching. Our arena guards refuse to fight. And a single alien female is sitting in the middle of our most famous arena, surrounded by the bodies of our best fighters. She is a Deathworlder, Thal said weakly. No one could have predicted. It is your job to predict. Raketh slammed his fist on the table. You bought her. You put her in the arena. You caused this mess, and now I have to clean it up. Captain Vorik cleared his throat. High Commander, with respect, we cannot simply send more soldiers to die. I have spoken with my guards. They will not enter that arena again. They would rather face punishment than face her. Then we use heavy weapons, one of the military officers suggested. A single shot from a pulse cannon would end this. And destroy the arena floor? Damage the structure? Raketh shook his head. The repair costs alone would be enormous. And it would look like we used heavy military weapons against one small female. The news broadcasts would mock us for years. Then what do we do? Thal asked. Raketh thought for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window that overlooked the arena floor. Far below, he could see the small human figure, still sitting, still waiting. Renegotiate, he said finally. Negotiate? Thal almost choked on the word. With a slave? She stopped being a slave 3 hours ago, Raketh replied. Look at her. She has defeated everything we sent. She has made fools of our arena system. And she did it all while 60 million people watched. He turned back to face the room. Right now, she has more power than anyone in this sector. We need to end this quickly and quietly before it gets worse. A small drone was sent into the arena, carrying a communication device. It landed on the sand a few meters from Yuna and projected a holographic screen. Rakith's face appeared on the screen. His expression was carefully controlled, showing no emotion. "Human," he said. "I am High Commander Rakith of the Korath Dominion. I wish to discuss terms for ending this situation." Yuna looked at the holographic face for a long moment. Then she smiled slightly and picked up the communication device. "Hello, High Commander," she said. Her voice was soft and polite, as if she were greeting a neighbor back on Earth. "Thank you for calling. I was beginning to think everyone had forgotten about me. What do you want?" "A ship," Yuna replied without hesitation. "A small one is fine. Enough fuel for 6 jumps through space. Star charts that will show me the way to human territory. You want us to simply let you go?" "Yes." Rega's eyes narrowed. "You are property of the Korath Dominion. You were legally purchased. You have killed Dominion fighters and Dominion soldiers. Why would we give you anything?" Yuna set down the cloth she had been using to clean her knife. She looked directly at the camera drone, her brown eyes calm and steady. "High Commander, let me explain my situation as I understand it. I have been sitting in this arena for 3 hours. Your guards refuse to fight me. Your gladiators are dead. You could send in heavy weapons, but that would destroy this beautiful arena and make you look weak using military force against one small female." She paused. "Eventually, you will find a way to kill me. I know that. You have more soldiers, more weapons, more resources. But I will make it expensive. I will make it embarrassing. I will take many of your people with me before I fall." "Is that a threat?" "It is a fact." Yuna gestured at the bodies around her. "I have no training, High Commander. I was a university student. I studied art and literature. If I can do this, imagine what a trained human soldier could do. Imagine what 100 of them could do. Imagine what 1,000 of them could do." Rakith was silent. "The broadcast is still live," Yuna continued. "How many people are watching right now? 60 million? 70 million? They are all seeing what one human can do when pushed too far. If you kill me here, publicly, you will confirm everything they just saw. You will teach the entire sector that humans are dangerous, that humans are terrifying, that humans should never, ever be captured and enslaved. And if we let you go," Yuna shrugged, "then maybe this all becomes just a story, a strange event, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Maybe people forget. Maybe they convince themselves it was a trick or an accident, or that I was somehow special." She leaned forward. "But if you kill me, High Commander, you turn me into a warning. You turn me into proof. And the next ship that finds a human colony might think twice before attacking it." The holographic image flickered as Rakith considered her words. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "You are very clever for a primitive species." "We are not primitive," Yuna said. "We are different. On Earth, everything is trying to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants. Even the water and the air can be dangerous if we are not careful. We evolved in a world that hated us. We survived because we learned to think, to plan, to adapt. We survived because we never give up. And you expect me to believe that you are typical of your species? That all humans are like you?" Yuna laughed. It was a genuine laugh, warm and real, and it somehow made her more frightening than any threat could have. "High Commander, I am not typical. On Earth, I was considered gentle, peaceful. My friends used to joke that I was too kind to hurt a fly." She stopped laughing, and her eyes went cold. "This is what a gentle human looks like when you kill her family and put her in a cage. Imagine what our angry ones look like. There was a long silence. On the holographic screen, Rakith's face showed signs of uncertainty for the first time. How do I know you will not bring your people back here for revenge? You do not know that, Yuna admitted. But I can tell you this humans have not discovered your sector yet. We do not know you exist. I was taken from a colony ship that was exploring new territory. If you let me go, I will be one person with one story. Maybe people will believe me. Maybe they will not. Either way, it will be years before humans find this place, if they ever do. And if we keep taking humans, if we keep selling them, Yuna's expression hardened. Then, eventually, you will take the wrong human. You will put them in an arena or a mine or a factory, and they will do what I did. And when that happens often enough, humans will start asking questions. They will start looking for where their people are disappearing to. And when they find you, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Rakith turned to speak to someone off-screen. After a moment, he faced the camera again. I need to consult with my advisors. This will take time. Take all the time you need, Yuna said. I am not going anywhere. The holographic image disappeared. Yuna set down the communication device and returned to cleaning her weapons dot in the conference room above the arena. Arguments had broken out. Some officials wanted to attack. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to pretend the whole thing had never happened. Overseer Thol sat silently in his chair, his earlier anger replaced by something like despair. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. He had spent a fortune on a small human, female, expecting easy entertainment, and instead had created the biggest disaster in Korath Arena history. Captain Varric watched the arguments without participating. He kept thinking about what the human had said, about gentle humans and angry humans, about what Earth must be like if it produced creatures like her. He had seen the recordings. He had watched her fight, move, think. She was faster than she should be, stronger than she should be, smarter than she should be, and she was apparently one of the gentle ones. Varric felt something he had not felt in many years of military service. He felt afraid of what humanity might become if the galaxy gave them a reason to go to war. Finally, Rakith raised his hand for silence. We will give her the ship, he announced. We will give her the fuel and the star charts. We will let her go. But sir, one of the officers began. Enough. Rakith's voice was final. I have made my decision. This situation ends now, quietly, with as little additional damage. The ship they gave her was old, but functional. It was a small cargo vessel, the kind used for short trips between nearby planets. Nothing fancy, nothing fast, but it would fly, and that was all that mattered. Yuna walked through the arena one last time as the sun rose over Korath Prime. The sand had been raked clean overnight. The bodies had been removed. The blood had been washed away. But somehow, the arena still felt different. It felt haunted. Guards lined her path from the arena floor to the landing platform where the ship waited. They wore full armor and carried charged weapons. But none of them looked at her. They kept their eyes forward, their bodies stiff with tension. Some of them had been there yesterday. Some of them had watched their friends fall to this small human female. None of them wanted to be the one who had to face her again. Yuna walked slowly. Her wounds had been treated by medical machines during the night, a small kindness from her captors, or perhaps just a way to make sure she was healthy enough to leave. But she still hurt. Every step sent pain through her legs. Every breath reminded her of the bruises on her ribs. She did not care. She was free. After 6 months of cages and chains and auctions, she was finally going home. At the foot of the ship's ramp, Captain Varric waited. He was alone, without guards or weapons. He looked tired, as if he had not slept all night. Yuna stopped in front of him. "Captain," she said. Human. He paused, struggling with something inside himself. May I ask you a question? You may ask. I may not answer. Vorik nodded. I reviewed your file. The information we have on you. Before you were captured, you were a university student. You studied literature and art history. You had no combat training, no military experience. You had never been in a fight. That is correct. Then how? He stopped himself. His hands were shaking slightly. How did you do what you did yesterday? How is that possible? Yuna considered the question. It was a fair question. It deserved a real answer. On Earth, she began, we have a saying. Every human is a soldier who has not yet found their war. She looked back at the arena behind her, at the empty seats and the clean sand that had been so red with blood just hours ago. Most humans live their entire lives without needing to fight. We go to school. We get jobs. We raise families. We grow old and die peacefully. But inside every one of us, buried deep where we usually cannot see it, there is something ancient. Something our ancestors left behind. What kind of something? Survival instinct, some call it. Fighting spirit, others say. I do not know the right name for it. She turned back to face him. For millions of years, my ancestors survived in one of the most dangerous environments in the galaxy. They were small and weak compared to the predators around them. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. They should have died out. They should have become extinct, but they did not. No, they did not. Yuna smiled, but it was a sad smile. They survived because they refused to give up. They survived because when everything seemed impossible, they found a way. They passed this down to their children and their children's children for 1,000,000 generations. It became part of what we are. And when I was standing in that arena, surrounded by enemies, with nowhere to run and no one to help me, she paused. The thing inside me woke up. I did not plan what I did. I did not think about each movement. I just moved. I let my body do what it was designed to do. What it had been waiting to do for millions of years. Vorik was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. We have soldiers, he said. Good soldiers. They train for years. They learn to fight, to kill, to survive. But yesterday, I watched you move through my guards like they were standing still. I watched you think faster and react quicker than any creature I have ever seen. He met her eyes. Is that normal? For humans? Yuna thought about her life on Earth. She thought about her mother, who had worked 12-hour days to provide for the family. Her father, who had built things with his hands and solved impossible problems with his mind. Her little brother, who had fought every day against a body that did not work quite right. Humans are survivors, she said finally. We endure things that would kill other species. We keep going when there is no hope. We get up when we fall down. Over and over again, forever, until we either succeed or die trying. That is what we are. That is what Earth made us. She stepped past him and walked up the ramp into the ship. At the top, she stopped and looked back. Captain, can I give you some advice? Vorik nodded. Tell your people to leave humans alone. Do not capture us. Do not enslave us. Do not give us reasons to fight. Because right now, most humans do not know your galaxy exists. We are peaceful people who want nothing more than to explore and learn and build new things. But if you hurt us, if you threaten the people we love, we will stop being peaceful. And then, Yuna's expression was calm, but her eyes were hard as stone. And then you will understand why Earth is called a death world. Not because of the animals or the weather or the radiation, but because of the species that conquered all of those things and still wanted more. She entered the ship. The ramp closed behind her. Inside, the vessel was simple and functional. A small cockpit at the front, a tiny living space in the middle, a cargo area at the back. Everything was clean and in working order. They had even left her food and water for the journey standard rations, nothing special, but enough to survive on. Yuna sat in the pilot's chair and powered up the systems. The engines hummed to life. Navigation screens lit up with star charts showing the route to human space. It would take several jumps and many weeks of travel, but eventually she would reach a human colony. Eventually she would see her own people again. She entered the launch sequence and felt the ship lift off the ground. Through the front window, she watched the arena of Karth Prime grow smaller and smaller below her. Then the sky turned from orange to purple to black as she left the atmosphere behind. Stars filled the void around her, millions of tiny lights in the endless darkness of space. Somewhere out there, on the far edge of the galaxy, human colonies spread across dozens of worlds. People like her parents. People like her brother. People who had no idea what had happened to their lost daughter, their lost sister. She wondered if anyone was still looking for her. She wondered if anyone had survived the attack on the colony ship. She wondered if there was anyone left who remembered her name. The navigation computer beeped, signaling that the first jump was ready. Yuna checked the coordinates, took a deep breath, and activated the jump drive. The stars stretched and blurred. Space folded around the ship. And then, in an instant, she was light years away from Karth Prime. Behind her, the Korath Dominion was already trying to forget what had happened. The broadcasts had been stopped. The recordings had been classified. Overseer Thal had been removed from his position and sent into quiet retirement. The arena of Karth Prime had been closed for renovations that would take many months. But the truth could not be hidden so easily. Guards who had been there told stories to their friends. Their friends told others. Copies of the recordings leaked onto private networks and spread through the underground. Species across the galaxy watched the small human female, the peaceful one, the student tear through warriors and soldiers and monsters like they were nothing. The stories spread. The rumors grew. And slowly, quietly, the galaxy began to change. Slavers started refusing to take human captives. Pirates changed their routes to avoid human colonies. Research facilities began requesting specimens of this strange species from Earth, but only specimens that were already dead, that could not wake up and fight back. The Korath Dominion passed a law making it illegal to capture, trade, or hold any human being. Other governments followed with similar laws. Within a year, humans had become the one species in the galaxy that no one wanted to anger. And in the quiet spaces between the stars, the human colonies continued to grow. They built new cities on new worlds. They raised families and grew crops and invented new technologies. They had no idea that the galaxy had learned to fear them. They had no idea that a single young woman had changed everything. Yuna traveled for 63 days before reaching the first human colony. When her ship landed on the outskirts of a small settlement called New Seoul, she was so weak from rationing her food that she could barely walk. But she walked anyway, one step at a time, just like she always had. The colonists who found her did not know what to make of her at first. A ragged woman in alien clothing, stumbling out of a strange ship, speaking Korean with an accent they did not recognize. But then she said her name, and someone remembered. There had been a colony ship almost a year ago. It had gone silent. Everyone assumed it had been lost. They took her to the medical center. They treated her wounds, old ones and new ones, scars that would never fully heal. They fed her real food for the first time in 7 months. And when she was strong enough, they asked her what had happened. Yuna told them everything. When she finished, the room was silent. The doctors and nurses and colonists who had gathered to hear her story stared at her with expressions of shock and amazement. "You killed all of them?" one doctor asked. "By yourself?" Yes, and they just let you go? They were afraid of what would happen if they did not.